I think it went very well. I was a little concerned going in. I was hoping they wouldn't make the mistake of trying to replicate the spectacle of a live event on the small screen of television and online, because there's such very different media. And luckily they did not make that mistake. They had very smart people producing it, and instead they designed for the person-to-person contact that happens through a camera. I thought there were multiple powerful moments, starting at the beginning with all of those faces representing, I think, the best of both big D and small d democratic values, and culminating with the powerful speech by Michelle Obama at the end.
And Michelle Obama, as powerful as her message was, she had taped her remarks before Joe Biden picked Kamala Harris as her running mate. So there was no mention of Kamala Harris in those remarks. Should she have redone the speech, perhaps, to make it more timely?
I think the speech was perfect. I think she was focusing on the values that are at stake in this election, which would have been at stake no matter who the running mate was, and that's rightly, I think, where she directed our attention. It was also expressed by the inclusion of Republicans in the event last night, along with Bernie Sanders as the leader of the most progressive end of the Democratic Party, emphasizing that this is very unusual among all of our elections, because it's not really just a partisan contest this time. It really is a battle over the definition of what kind of country the United States is going to be.
And Bernie Sanders also calling for supporters to back Biden, calling for unity. Do you think all those young people who so passionately supported him and his message, people like my young daughter, who was very disappointed when he opted out, do you think they are going to vote for Biden?
It looks like it. It looks like we're experiencing a lot less of the kind of holdout sort of attitude we've seen in some previous elections. It seems like everybody recognizes that the re-election of Donald Trump is essentially the giant asteroid heading towards the planet Earth, and it has a way of unifying everybody when they realize they're facing a near existential threat. And I'd say that's not an exaggeration. When you talk about how we're going to define our democracy going forward, everything else has to come as secondary importance. So I think we're going to see most people doing their very best to vote.
Spencer, one of the most moving stories of the night was from this young woman from Arizona who lost her father to COVID-19, and really blistering criticism of the president in how he's handled this crisis. She said about his father, his only pre-existing condition was trusting Donald Trump, and for that, he paid with his life. Wow. And I just wonder if personal stories like hers and her father's perhaps were more effective than your ordinary, everyday politicians.
I agree, and I think it was a good idea to focus on stories like that from what are sometimes called ordinary people. Of course, every person is unique, so I'm not sure how happy I am with that particular phrase when it gets used. I agree, and I agree that was one of the most powerful moments of the evening. And it's also true, you know, I have this new book called Patriots of Two Nations, by the way, that explores our current state of division in depth, going back to the founding of the country. And one of the things I say is normally we really must not judge candidates in moralistic terms and say this is a bad person. But this election is unusual in our history in that the character of the incumbent president is the top issue here. His character and his incompetence. And he has literally, it's not too far to say, he has literally caused the deaths, the unnecessary deaths of tens of thousands of Americans, not to mention millions of lost jobs, through his inability and his refusal to provide national leadership on the pandemic.
We'll have